Chapter 2 of the Manless Worlds by Murray Leinster. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2 The Deadly Beams. He did. They were the most terrible weapons ever created by men. They had ended war by making all battles mass suicide for both sides. They were beams of the same neuronic frequencies utilized in the disciplinary circuits which had kept men enslaved. But where the disciplinary circuits were used in place of police and prisons and merely tortured the individual citizens to whom they were tuned, whenever he might be upon a planet, the fighting beams killed indiscriminately. They induced monstrous, murderous currents in any living tissue containing the amino chains normally a part of human flesh. They were death rays. They killed men and women and children alike in instants of shrieking agony. But no planet could be attacked from space if it was defended by such beams. It was 2,000 years since the last attempt at attack from space had been made. That fleet had been detected far out and swept with fighting beams, and every living thing in the attacking ships died instantly. So planets were independent of each other, but when spaceships ceased to be used, the fighting beams were needless, and ultimately were scrapped or put into museums. Somebody, the mayor said wrathfully, has changed those beams. They're not tuned to animal tissue in general anymore. They're tuned to male tissue, to blood containing male hormones perhaps, and Sanab 2 is building an empire with them. We found out only 2 weeks ago. There's a planet near Ades, Tom 4. 4 years ago, its matter transmitter ceased to operate. The galaxy's going to pot anyhow. Nothing new about that. But we just learned the real reason. The real reason was that 4 years ago, fighting beams swept Tom 4 from pole to pole. The beams killed men and left women unharmed. Every man on Tom 4 died as the planet rotated. The beams came from space. Every man and every boy and every male baby died. There were only girls and women left. He added curtly, there were 500 million people on Tom 4. Kim stiffened. Donna beside him drew closer. Every man killed, said Kim. What? The mayor beside him swore angrily. Half the population. On AIDS, we're 9/10 men. Women don't run to revolt or crime. There'd be not much left on AIDS if those beams swept us. But I'm talking about Tom 4. The men died, all of them, so many that the women couldn't bury them all. One instant, the planet was going about its business as usual. The next, every man was dead, his heart burst and blood running from his nostrils, lying in the streets, toppled in the baths and eating halls, crumpled beside the machines. Boys in schools dropped at their desks, babes in arms with their mothers shrieking at the sight. Only women left. A world of women, cities and continents filled with dead men and women going mad with grief. Kim felt Donna's hand fumbling for his. She held it fast. Go on, said Kim. When they thought to go to the matter transmitter and ask for help from other planets, the matter transmitter was smashed. They didn't go at first. They couldn't believe it. They called from city to city before they realized theirs was a manless world. Then when they'd have told the men of another planet what had happened, they couldn't. For 4 years, there was not one man or boy on the planet Tom 4, only women. The old ones grew older, the girls grew up. Some couldn't remember ever seeing a man. No communication with other worlds. Then one day there was a new matter transmitter in the place of the smashed one. Men came out of it. The women crowded about them. The men were very friendly. They were from Sanab 2. Their emperor had sent them to colonize. There were 1,000 women to every man, 10,000. Some of the women realized what had been done. They'd have killed the newcomers, but some of the women fell in love with them, of course. In a matter of days, every man had women ready to fight all other women who would harm him. Their own men were dead 4 years. What else could they do? More and more men colonists came. Presently things settled down. The men were happy enough. They'd no need to work with all the women about. They established polygamy naturally. Presently it was understood that Tom 4 was part of the empire of Greater Sanab. So it was. What else? In a generation there'll be a new population, all its citizens descended from loyal subjects of the emperor. And why shouldn't they be loyal? A million colonists inherited the possessions and the women of a planet. It was developed. Everything was built. Every man was rich and with a harem. A darned clever way to build an empire. Who'd want to revolt and who could? He stopped. The 2 moons of Terra Nova floated tranquilly higher in the sky. The sweet, soft, unfamiliar smells of a Terra Nova night came to the small group on the terrace of Kim Rendell's house. "That's what's ahead of Ades," raged the mayor of Stideham. "And I've 4 sons." A woman of Tom 4 smashed the lock on the new matter transmitter, which set it to send only to Sanab, and traveled to Kiev 5 to warn them. But they laughed at her, and when she begged to be sent to a distant planet, they grinned and sent her to Ades. He paused. Not long after, a criminal from Kiev 5, he'd struck a minor noble for spitting on him, came to Ades. There'd been inquiry for that woman, spies doubtless from Tom 4 trying to trace her. It was clear enough she'd told the truth. "So," said Kim slowly, "you think Ades will be next?" "I know it," said the mayor of Stideham. "We've checked the planets that have cut communications in our star cluster. 20 once inhabited planets have ceased to communicate in the past few years. The 20 planets nearest to Sanab. We figured Kiev 5 would be next. Then we'd be in line for it. Kiev 5 cut communications 4 days ago. Every man on Kiev 5 is dead. We've had exiles from a dozen nearby planets. All know Kiev 5 is cut off. It's inhabited only by women going mad with grief. In a few years, when they grieve no longer but despair instead, new colonists from Sanab will come out of a new matter transmitter to let the women fall in love with them and to breed new subjects for the empire of Sanab. So we've got to have spaceships, man, we've got to." Kim was silent. His face was hard and grim. 20 planets those so-and-sos have taken over," roared the mayor. "They've murdered not less than 4 billion men already, and the weasels have 100 wives apiece and the riches of generations for reward. Do you think I'll let that happen to Ades? With my 4 sons there, space? No, I want ships to fight with." The 2 small moons rose higher. Strange sweet smells floated into the air. Donna pressed close to Kim. On Terra Nova, across the gulf between island universes, Kim was surely safe. But any woman can feel fear for her man on any excuse. "It's a hard problem," said Kim evenly. "We barely made Terra Nova with the Starshine, and there's just about enough fuel left to take off with. Of course, on transmitter drives she could go anywhere, but I doubt that we've fuel enough to land her. Here on Terra Nova, we need supplies from Ades to live. If fighting beams play on Ades, we'll starve. And even if we had fuel, the Starshine isn't armed, and they'll have a fleet preparing to fight anything." Donna murmured in his ear. "We're beaten then," said the colony organizer bitterly. "Ades will be wiped out, we'll starve, and the Sanabians will go through the first galaxy, killing off the men on planet after planet, and then moving in to take over." Donna murmured again in Kim's ear. The mayor of Stideham growled profanely, furiously. Donna laughed softly. The 2 visitors stared at her suspiciously. "What do we do, Kim Rendell?" "I suppose," said Kim wryly, "we'll have to fight. We've no fuel and no weapons, but that ought to surprise them." "Eh?" "They'll be prepared," Kim explained, "to defend themselves against any conceivable resistance by any conceivable weapon. And a warship a fairly intelligent planet could build should be able to wipe out 10,000 Starshines. So when we attack them without any weapons at all, they won't quite know what to do." The 2 visitors simply stared at him. "You've got to get hafnium. You've got to get fuel. You can't face a battleship." "But," said Kim, "battleships have fuel on board, and they'll have hafnium too. It'll be risky, but convenient." End of chapter 2.